Hey there, welcome to Alicia Town's Yoga. Today's yoga practice will be a shorter yin yoga practice where we will hold each pose for about 2 minutes. No props are required here, but if you do like to have a couple of blocks or maybe a blanket or a bolster for your yin class, feel free to grab those. And we're going to go ahead and get started in a seated position. So, starting in a seated position here, go ahead and extend the right leg long down your mat. Bring the left foot to the inside of your right thigh. So we want to find a half butterfly pose here. So just keeping that right leg extended, you can bring it out to as wide as you would like, or just kind of keeping it more narrow or shallow there. Just finding kind of a spot here where you can hang out for a few minutes, where it doesn't feel like you're forcing anything in the body. So start to settle in there. I'll get our timer going. And then from here, just start to walk the hands down towards the leg. And maybe you start to round the spine here. Now, it might feel better to just kind of keep a nice length in the spine, kind of keeping the torso and the chest more lifted. So it's totally up to you and your body. Just finding what works, meeting your body where it's at today, and just feeling a nice stretch maybe in the hamstrings or the inner right thigh there, keeping the sit bones nice and grounded down to earth, towards your mat. And just starting to turn inwards. Maybe you close down the eyes. And then keeping that right foot engaged as well. So keeping the foot flexed. Maybe even reaching for the foot there. So we have lots of options here. Lots of ways that can work for everybody. So with yin yoga, just finding stillness within the body, but also finding stillness in the mind, which can be one of the hardest things to do, is just finding the stillness in the mind where the mind's not wandering to, to-do lists, or maybe, looking at social media. Just finding this time for you to tune into your body, seeing what's going on there. So whenever you're ready, start to walk the hands closer towards your body, coming to a more upright position. And then we're just going to switch the legs. So start to extend the left leg long, bring in the right foot to the inner left thigh. And maybe you start to kind of turn the torso a little bit towards that extended leg. Left foot is flexed. So left foot is flexed there. And just start to set up your foundation for this side. And you may already start to notice a difference in the side. It's totally fine. Just noticing these certain things in the body, bringing in body awareness. So start to walk the hands down towards the leg, finding a spot here where the body wants to naturally stop. And I'm going to set our timer for us. So again, maybe it's just placing the hands on your mat. Maybe you want to start to round the spine, bringing the forehead closer down towards the leg. So not necessarily having the forehead on the leg, but just visualizing that stretch. Maybe reaching for the left foot there. Just finding what's available, so not forcing anything in the body. We want the body to just slowly open up. Noticing the breath along the backside of the body as you inhale. The ribs expand away. And as you exhale, let the body soften, body contracts. And just inviting in the quiet space in the mind. And giving yourself permission to just fully be here in your practice. And so from here, start to bring the head and the chest up, walking the hands back towards your body and just slowly coming back into an upright position here. And then let's take a moment to bring the feet together. So we want to create a diamond shape here with the legs. So just creating a nice diamond shape. You might know this as more of a butterfly pose. So if it does feel better for you to bring the feet in closer towards your body, having more of a tighter butterfly shape here, feel free to do that. But sometimes it can feel nice just to kind of start in a more butterfly or in a more diamond shape with the legs there. So from here, just start to feel nice and rooted down again through the sit bones, keeping the sit bones back away. Maybe you start to walk the hands away from the body and maybe starting to round the spine there. If that's not feeling good in your body though, feel free to kind of bring the hands on the feet, placing the hands there, maybe resting the hands anywhere along the legs. So if you're already feeling enough sensation the inside of the thighs, feel free to keep the spine nice and long here, coming to a more upright position. And then I'll go ahead and start our timer as you settle in. And so just coming back to the breath. Giving yourself that permission to come back to the breath. Allowing yourself to explore the sensations, maybe the feelings that are coming up in the mind. Try not to tie any judgments to that. Just noticing what's coming up. So if you feel like the body wants to sort of stretch maybe a little deeper and you feel like you want to round the spine a little more, and maybe you're placing the palms up with the hands out in front of you, and just sort of meditating on any sensations that's coming up as well. And a big one is just being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you might start to feel that you want to come out of the stretch early. See if you can stay there in the quiet. See if you can stay here, inviting in the sensations in the slow stretch. And then whenever you're ready, starting to plant the hands again and then slowly walking the hands back towards your body, rolling the spine up. So we're coming back to an upright position, maybe rolling the shoulders back and down a few times. And then go ahead and take your hands behind you and then placing the feet wider than hips distance apart. We're just going to windshield wiper the knees here. So side to side, starting with the right side, just lowering the knees to the right side, and then bringing the knees back up to center, and then placing the knees on the left side. So we're going to do that a few times, just moving slowly side to side, and just taking our time here. So bringing both knees back up through center, both knees towards the right side. And then just coming back up through center, making our way onto our knees. So coming onto our knees, we're going to make our way onto our bellies for Sphinx pose. So if you do have the blanket or the towel and you would like to place it underneath the squishy part of the belly for a little bit of support there, feel free to do that. But we're going to come onto the belly here and then onto the forearms. So I like to start by placing my elbows underneath the shoulders, and we're finding a nice back bend here. So if this is too much sensation here, too much of a back bend, start to walk the hands away from the body. And then your chest starts to lower down towards the mat a little bit more, and it creates a little less of a back bend. But finding with the elbows, I find with the elbows underneath the shoulders is a good starting point to check in. And then just checking in with the feet placement. So I like to have my legs a little wider than hips distance apart there. The legs are just long, nice and long there down the mat. You can sort of imagine the tailbone lengthening down the legs there. And so I'll go ahead and set our timer as we start to settle in to our Sphinx pose. So from here, just feeling nice and grounded down through the forearms. The chest is nice and lifted. And you should feel a gentle compression, like a light gentle compression in the low back, but nothing sharp shooting. None of those sensations. So if you do start to feel like a sharp shooting pain in the back or down the legs, feel free to lower all the way down to the mat and place the hands or place the forehead on top of the hands, coming to crocodile pose and just taking a rest there. Start to come back to the breath here. Just noticing the breath, how it feels while lying on the belly. So noticing on the inhales, the body pushes away from the mat, not too much, but still pushes away from the mat. And then on a slow, long exhale, just notice how that feels, how the back of the body starts to soften. So sometimes we feel like we need to rush an inhale or rush our exhales. Just see if you can really lengthen the inhales and then allow that full exhalation, maybe even a longer, allow the exhalation to be longer than the inhales. And then whenever you're ready, start to slowly bring the hands on top of each other, and then you're just lowering all the way down towards your mat, placing the forehead on top of the hands, and just taking a rest there in your crocodile pose. So feel free to keep the legs extended long here, or maybe you bend the knees and just take the legs side to side. Kind of think of a windshield wiper of the legs, but lying on the belly here. So maybe you just find some stillness, or maybe you want to release that tension there by moving the legs side to side, feeling that in the hip flexors. And then whenever you're ready, extending the legs long if you had the legs side to side, coming back to some stillness here in your crocodile pose. And then go ahead and start to bring the hands back up towards underneath your shoulders, pushing up into a tabletop position. And then setting the feet together and the knees wide. Let's extend the arms out long here. We're going to come into a child's pose. So extending the arms out long and just maybe allowing the forehead to rest down onto the mat. Start to settle in there, maybe turning down the eyes. I'll set our timer here. So just allowing the stretch through the arms. Allow a nice release in the low back. So just releasing the hips down towards the heels. Start to notice the breath along the back of the body. And again, just finding some stillness here where you can settle in, whether that be the body or the mind. I like to use my breath as an anchor for a yin yoga practice. So every time that my mind starts to wander away, just using your breath as an anchor, bringing you back to the practice. Just giving yourself that permission to just turn inwards, tune into your body, explore what's going on. And then whenever you're ready, start to lift the arms a little bit off of the mat there, lifting the chest, and then just slowly starting to walk the hands back towards your body, coming to an upright position. Bring the knees closer together and just take a moment here to sit back onto the heels. So your toes do not have to be tucked here, but let's just take a moment to sit back onto the heels, maybe placing the hands back in the lap, closing down the eyes, just taking a moment of rest, taking a moment to reflect. And then start to bring your hands in front of you, tuck the toes under. You might have to kind of spread the toes wide there. We're going to go into more of like a broken toe pose here. So just setting back onto the toes. And then if it's more sensation there than what you'd like, feel free to bring the hands in front of you to relieve a little bit of that sensation. And if you're looking for more sensation in the toes, bring the hands behind you. Maybe picking up the knees. So just finding a version here that works for your body. We won't be here too long. Just a few more breaths. And then start to bring the hands back towards the mat, coming to a tabletop position. Step the left foot forward by the left hand anywhere. So sometimes it can be more comfortable for the foot to be in between the hands or maybe off to the side somewhere. We're going to come to what they call a dragon pose. So the right leg I want to have extended long down the mat. So again, maybe if you have a blanket or a towel to place underneath that back knee for a little bit more support there. The left foot is extended up. So we're more like in this low lunge type of pose or shape we want to create with the body. So just setting up your foundation here, feel free to kind of place the hands up onto the knee if you want to come a little bit higher. Feel free to place the hands down towards the mat and just kind of finding that starting place there. So hands up on the knees or hands down on the mat. If you have the blocks, hands on the blocks can be a good option. And so I'll go ahead and start that timer here and start to just allow the hips to sink down. Allow the pelvis to sink down here. I'm going to place my hands on the mat. I find that that just helps better with stability, but sometimes that can feel uncomfortable on the wrist. So just check in with that. And then just start to come back to the breath here. So keeping a slow, steady breath. This is a deep hip opener. So just noticing what comes up in the mind, being aware of the ebb and flows of the energy that comes up in the body. Using your breath as that anchor. And so if you do have the hands planted down towards the mat and you would like to feel a little bit more sensation there, feel free to come onto the forearms. So coming onto the forearms, feeling a deeper stretch there in the hip flexors. And maybe just going only to what's available to you. Only going as deep as what the body is inviting you to go. We're going to start to shift the weight back into that back knee, sweep that left knee in, and then we're going to come into just a gentle cat-cow here. So coming back to a neutral tabletop, we'll take a few gentle cat-cows. So on an inhale, start to lower the belly, lift the chin, and then on an exhale, start to round the spine, bringing your chin to the chest. And then inhale, lower the belly, lift the chin. And exhale, round the spine, bring your chin to the chest. Again, just very easy, fluid movements here. Inhale, lower the belly, lift the chin. And then exhale, find your cat pose. And then just coming back to neutral tabletop here. Lengthen the spine. Let's go ahead and step the right foot up by the right hand. Again, maybe taking that foot in between the hands. I personally like to have my right foot out towards the right side. And then start to lengthen that left leg long down the mat. So just setting up your foundation on this side. Feeling nice and rooted down through that right foot. And feel free to take your time here to get set up. So if you feel like you need to come back to tabletop to get set up, totally fine. Feel free to bring the hands up to the knee if that's more comfortable. So I'll go ahead and set our timer here for 2 minutes. Start to allow the pelvis to sink down, feeling into the hip flexors. Turning inward again to notice how the body feels on this side. Being in this dragon pose. And so with yin yoga, it's a very passive form of yoga. So slowly stretching the muscles and the fascia. And so from here, as we want to just, like I said, slowly stretch the muscles there. If you want a little bit more sensation, feel free to come down onto the forearms, but only if the body is inviting you. So if the body feels like it's comfortable staying here and you're feeling enough sensation there, feel free to stay up on the hands or even up onto the hands on the knee. Coming back to the breath, keeping that slow, steady breath. And then whenever you're ready, start to shift the weight back into that left knee, sweeping in that right knee, coming back to a neutral tabletop here. And then we're going to take a very gentle downward dog. So on an inhale, start to tuck the toes under, and then exhale, downward dog. So just finding a nice stretch there, lengthen through the spine. Maybe pedal out the feet there. Sometimes it can feel nice to sway side to side in the hips. And then we'll just finish here with the downward facing dog. So feel free to sort of lengthen through the spine some more. Let's take an inhale, rise up on the balls of the feet. Exhale, bend the knees all the way down to the mat. And then we're just going to take an easy seat here. So just taking an easy seat, maybe before wrapping up your practice, taking a few moments to reflect. If anything came up during the practice, feel free to maybe journal, take some time for you to reflect, and I hope you enjoy the practice. Until next time, take care.